So I think we should get started, guys, if everyone's okay with that. Hiya. For those of you who've not been here last time, I think I see some new faces. My name's Lucia. I'm going to be conducting this workshop. So let me have a quick show of hands who's been here last time. Cool. So thank you a lot for coming back. Thank you for sticking with me. What I want to show today is a bit more. So, like last time, we're going to go to this little link, to hackersatcambridge.com, Intro to Programming. That's going to redirect you to here, where I'm at, on the two screens in the separate... Can anyone see well? Can everyone see well? That's where the demonstration is going to be going on, and this is where the slides are going to be. So, we're going to go right here. You have access to the slide deck, so you can follow me at your own pace. And we're going to have the playgrounds that I'm going to introduce. This time we're playing more than last time. Last time I spoke a lot. So I talked about why programming is so cool. I talked about why I think you should learn programming, although you're all here, so I'm guessing you already know that. Then I talked about what happens when we write some code, we write some words and how it gets translated. Then I briefly mentioned about programming languages, what their trade-offs are. If you remember, I said that there's several programming languages which you can learn, and different ones appeal to you for different reasons, i.e. if you want to do something maybe very, very next to the computer, you're going to choose a hard-to-read language. If you want to do something more high-level, like we're doing right now, which is learning the basics, we can use like JavaScript, which I'm teaching you right now. Cool. So, and we did the building blocks of programming, data, instructions. I hope you're familiar with that. So, who hasn't been here for the last workshop? I hope you've written some of the material of that was readily available. Have you gone through it? It's that is right here. So, who hasn't been here and didn't have a look? I'd advise you to just have a look at the slide deck. Maybe play around with functions a bit, because it's a very important building block in what we're going to do in this workshop as well. So if you haven't played with it, go ahead and just play. So, and we did some variables. Last time, I didn't get to touch on arrays very much, nor play around with functions as much as I would have liked. So if you'll bear with me, I'll kind of go through them a bit again. So I mentioned functions. This is a repeat slide from last time. They're really important. Now, why is that? Well, functions are very useful in the sense that you can access them from anywhere. So what you can think about is you want to do this thing, and it's quite easy. Like you can realize it's quite easy. Say you want to access I don't know, you want to access the first character in a yeah, let's do that. Let's try to access the first character. So get first letter from string and JavaScript. Let's tell Google what we want. Okay, so yeah, look. Here it is. Okay. What can we do? So the question is, like, I have a string, I want to get to its first character. You usually want to look at the answer. If you remember last time, I told you that Stack Overflow is a really nice kind of Quora for programmers, if you will. And you can ask questions at it, and it will generally come up with the right answer after one or two searches. This time I was lucky enough for it to come up with the right one at the first time, but it doesn't really, sometimes doesn't happen. So look at it. They say x.charat. So what is charat? Charat is just my function. So if you remember from last time, we did, so can everyone get into the console? You do inspect, and then you can get into the console easily enough. So let's try to get something. So let's say var name equals hacker. Yeah, that would be pretty good. If I could type, that would be even more better. Okay, I'm doing my name. So name.char@, and where do I want to get? So can anyone tell me, if you remember correctly, what was like the first thing, the first index of whatever? Anyone? Like the first element of, say, example? No? Yeah, perfect. Thank you. So, and it's not chat@, it's char@. Beautiful. So when I did name.char@, 0, funnily enough, it showed my name. So this is one of the moments in which it's really useful, because say you want to go through a lot of names and you want to get the first letter of all of them. You just call this function char@, for all of them, and that's it. There you go. That was as easy as that. You won't generally have to write a lot if you're doing basic stuff. So that's what I wanted to touch on. Okay, I'm going to try to emphasize a bit more on arrays. So why do I think arrays are really, really nice? They're, like I said, lists of values. And you can think of them as trains in which you can put a lot of stuff and just move them around. And that's it. And I talked about how nice it is to access stuff in arrays. You can access stuff in arrays by indexing. And you index them like var my array equals, let's do the example on the slides. Let's do cat and 42 and true. Okay, that's probably not the exact example on the slides. So how can I get my first element? Easily enough. It's at the 0. How can I get my second element? It's an index 1. And like I said, why I really like JavaScript and why I've chosen to also show you the console is because of this cool feature right here. It's because you can see, it's a much better visual for you to see that 0th element is cat, the first element is 42, the second element is true. No, third element. The second element, if you will. Cool. So, but I access stuff. That's not really useful for me, is it? What I would like to do is maybe know how big my array is, because for us, right, for us it's really easy to look at it and just say it has 3 elements. That's fine, but how does the computer know? So for that matter, we can use myArray.length. Now what myArray.length does, it's looking at the whole array, it's counting, and it's saying, I've looked through all of your elements, counted them up, went like, saw cat, that's 1, saw 42, that's 2, saw true, that's 3 elements. And you finish your array, you've got 3 elements. That's basically it. And there are a lot of other cool things that you can do with functions on arrays. So for instance, you can have a search, right? You can also search into arrays. Say, I want to see where 42 is in my array. Say I don't know. So I'm going to say myArray.index of 42. And this should show up as 1. Because if we look at my array again, 42 is at 1. With me so far? Is everyone okay? No? No? Haven't got there? So tell me if I'm moving too quickly. Please feel free to shout at me. Feel free to raise your hand. Yeah? Yeah, I'm sorry about that. So, I don't remember if I did not specify. So, what is very necessary is bar. Bar is the keyword that you really need to use. MyArray is the name of the array that you need. This is useful when you're setting it up. It's the brackets. You need the opening and closed straight brackets for it. And whatever you put in it has to be kind of separated by commas. And that's it. So if you're going to put 2 things in it, say var my new array equals 1 and 2, that's 2 elements. And it'll know that it has 2 elements because, where is it? Because you're going to have that comma right there. Any other questions?
And so if it's a word, it has to make quotations.
Yes. So if it's a string, it has, so I talked about briefly last time about numbers. Numbers don't need any quotation marks. Strings do need either double or single quotation marks. Yeah?
Sorry, how do you truncate an array?
How do you truncate an array? How do you want to truncate it?
Just replace it with spaces.
With spaces?
Yeah.
That's a pretty good question. Thank you. So how you replace it with spaces, you can actually just say my array dot fill, and you do spaces. And that's it. And we got our arrays filled with spaces. This was one of the things that I was actually going to showcase. So whenever you want to make an array, and you're kind of tired of the things that it has in it, You can just say, let's just fill it with nothing. Just fill it with spaces. Just fill it with whatever you want to. It will fill, though, every single element of it. And for instance, say I want a new array. I want a var empty. Can I write? Yes, I can. Array equals nothing. So this created an empty array. And if you want, you can have it look for yourself. It's empty. It has a length of 0. So I can prove that to you. I call empty.length on it, empty array.length, and it says it has 0 elements. So now I say I want my array to have 5 ones in it. So how do I go about that? Well, I can say my array.length, so I can set the length of my array to something new. I want 5 ones. Okay, empty array. Let's see what it has. It has nothing in it. Now, you may ask, what happens if I try to access something in it? Nothing, because it's undefined. I've said that it's a thing which has 5 emptinesses in it. So I want to fill this emptiness in my empty array, poor thing. I want to put ones in it. I said I want 5 ones. So now I've got an array filled with 5 ones. Isn't that cool? I think that's pretty cool. I like.
Want to fill one space, and for example, the second number in the second space, then you do it with the code.
Yeah, you can't automatically do that. You'll have to do a bit more work for that, because like I said, if you want to do really simple tasks like truncate the array or fill it with empty spaces, you can call it with OneLine Functions, which you can look up. If you didn't know the fill, so if I wasn't here to tell you that you can do it with fill, you could have looked it up as I did with the char at. You could have said fill array empty spaces JavaScript, and you could go about it. And you can say create an array of empty strings, and it just says, look, here's how it does, but I'll get to that later. So here's what you do, what you actually want to do with the values from 1 to, so this is how you'll get kind of from values 1 to whatever you want. But yeah, so as that little Stack Overflow thing mentioned, you can do. So let's create another empty array. Empty r equals nothing. And let's fill it with what you want. So I'm going to say empty r dot push. And then I push 1. Now what does push do? Now empty r contains only 1 element. And it has a push. And I pushed 1 element into the thing. And happily enough, it said, I'm happy, I now have element. If I want to push another element, empty r is now 1, 2. So pushing a thing onto your array does the following. Gets the element that you give it, because like I said, push is also a function. So it takes the 2, for instance, we're there, takes the 2, puts it at the end. That's what push does. So push assumes that you give it something, you are calling push on empty array in this case, but on whenever you call it, you're assuming you're using it on that with the input 2, or whatever is between those brackets. So I can also say empty array.push, let's say true. And now, empty r, if we look at it, has 1, 2, and true. So you can see a pattern here. You can see that whatever I add in the push, it adds to the end of the array. What we can do is we can try to push as many elements as you want into it. It won't really tell us a limit. If I go about asking it its length again, it'll know because it's updating it as you go. So push also updates the length. Basically says, okay, if you look at me now, I have length 3. If you push something more inside, say I want to push a name, I don't know. Yeah. And you look at empty array, and now it has everything that I pushed into it. Everyone with me so far with arrays and what's happening? Cool. So yeah, that's what I really love about them. They're very versatile, and look, you can, like you said, fill them with spaces, fill them with 1s and 0, add however many values you want to them, and that's perfectly fine. So what we can also do with arrays is sort them. So if we go right ahead and do, so imagine you want a lot of names. You have so many people, and you're in a school. You're in a school and you have this full list, and maybe you don't have access to Excel, and they can't sort it automatically for you. So what you want to do is you say, I want my names sorted alphabetically. That's funny enough. So you say names. Names now looks like this. So if I want to sort names, I'm just going to call the sort function on it. And that's pretty much it. And it sorted it alphabetically. Now, obviously, you can ask, but what if I push something in it? I don't know, something. Will names now be sorted? No, it won't. You'll have to call sort on it again if you want. Oh, okay. Let's push a different name. Okay. Now, names is not sorted, but if you sort it, then it sorts them around. So it won't do that automatically for you. You'll have to keep calling the method, the function on it. Cool. And yeah, I presented the index of already, and that's kind of cool. But let's get into the meat of today's talk. It's one of the important things that I'm going to tell you about is conditionals. Now, as I mentioned beforehand, you may remember I talked about Booleans, I talked about true and false, and how they're conditions, how they're tests for conditions, but I didn't really define conditions, did I? Well, here's where they're important, because like I gave you the example last time, if it's cold outside, you'll put a scarf on. If it's not, you probably won't, because you don't need it. It's kind of the same thing. So we make decisions in our lives that are based on some condition being true or false. And this is used in programming a lot. You will see a lot of if-then-else, because it is one of the most crucial things that you can possibly do. Because you're like, should I go this way or should I go that way? What makes me go which way? That's kind of it. That's this condition right here. By the way, I'm going to use kind of this way of showing it to you, if you will, of showing you the implicit kind of wording behind the syntax. This is the syntax. The syntax differs from every language. I had a question right here, like, is this JavaScript syntax much different than Python syntax, for instance? No, it's a matter of changing some of the like brackets or whatever, but that's pretty much it when you want to translate from one language to the other. And what I'm trying to teach you now is how to think in the concepts, and that's why I'm going to use this a lot, because this gives you the idea without boring you with the syntax, like without scaring you with dots or whatever in the words. Cool. So what is this doing? It is testing if this condition is true, then it'll go into this little block. If this condition is not true, then it will do this other thing. In other case, if we go right ahead and say var word equals very long word maybe. And now, let's see if my word got in there. Yes, it did. So let's try to see this. So if word.length, so let's just check that we know what word.length is going to be. So word.length is going to be 17. Now, if we do this, if we write this out, what are we expecting to get? Because word.length is 17. So word.length less than 12, which I have on there, is going to say false. So because word.length is saying false, now, if I go ahead and implement is literally a fancy word by saying I'm going to write out whatever it is in there. If I go ahead and write out, I'm going to say console.log word. I'm not going to write the whole thing. Else, let's see, console.log, and I'm going to say long word. superfluous word. Good. And what are we expecting this guy to do? What are we expecting it to show? Yep. Good. So long word. You're superfluous. So that's pretty good. It evaluated. It said, this is not true. Then I'm going in here. And that's pretty much it. That's all there is to it. If a condition is true, you go into this block. If a condition is false, you go into this block. And you can use your conditions. If my word were different, so say I want my word to be small word. So my word is now small. If I do the same thing, oh, as I mentioned, some of you have not been here. This is a really cool thing that the console has. You go up and down with arrows and you see your last commands and stuff like that. It's really useful. I love it. So if we do this again, then we're expecting it to actually, so let's see again what our word length is. Is now 9. Word length less than 12. True. So if we run this guy, if we run the if then else, we'll have word, i.e. we'll go in this branch. Cool. Everyone with me? Good. I'm glad. So yeah, that's pretty much what is going on there. This is a visual. I'm not going to stress on this. Some of you may be visual learners. This is just kind of a chart, flow chart, if you will, to understand what's going on. You start here. You say, is this condition true? No, you do something else. Is it true? Yes, you do something. Basically the same thing is here, but it's a visual. Some people like visuals. I'm one of them. Good. So if I can remind you guys that we did some operators last time. And like I showed you now, so I implicitly assumed that you know that this guy right here is the less than operator. And what it does is it says true if it's less than, and false if it doesn't. I assume that you kind of remember this from last time, but I'm stressing it now again. And you can use all of these operators as well inside the ifs. And I'm going to touch on this new thing. Now, what are these? They're logical operators. And why do I like them a lot? And why do if then else statements like them a lot as well? So you see, you may want to test more than one condition at a time, or may want to test if two things are true at the same time. And how you can do that is by using this and, for instance. So what did I say right now? Test if two conditions are true at the same time. I.e., say I have var is new equals true. Actually, let me give a better example. So let's just try these out one by one. So what does true and true do? What will true and true evaluate to? Anyone? Yeah, it's true. What does true and false evaluate to? Yeah, that's pretty good. You got the hang of it. And, well, false then false. I'm just going to do that for the sake of it. False then false is false. Good. So what if I want to say true or false? I'm in this. I'm here. Yeah, it's true. It's pretty good. But false and false or false is still pretty much false. It's still pretty sure that neither false nor false are true. Therefore, they're false. I'm sorry for the bad wording. But there you have it. So now let's see a better example. So I want var is new equals to true. And I want var is pink equals to false. So, oh, I'm sorry about that. I will try to refrain from not being consistent with my semicolons. So for now, please write semicolons at the end of all of your statements. Some JavaScript accepts this. Some JavaScript doesn't. So we'll stick to using the semicolons at the end. Good. So I said var is new is true, var is pink is false. So I want to check if something is new and it's pink, I'm going to wear it, right? So if is new and if it's pink, then Otherwise, maybe next time. So, what will this guy do? I said before, is pink is false, and is new is true. So in this particular case, we'll go with maybe next time. It's not pink, I can't wear it. Good. That's pretty much it. That's when you want to use it in a real life example, for instance. But obviously you won't have this particular case. You'll have maybe is 2 less than 3 equals 2 less than 3. And is 2 less than, not import modules, I don't want that. Is 2 less than 3 is true. So you, oh yeah, I'm so sorry. Hello. Is that better? Can everyone see? Can people at the back see? Good. Thank you very much. Good. So I talked about the other operators a bit. Do you remember this guy? This guy's a friend of mine. This modulus operator allows you to do a lot of stuff. And what is one of the best things you can do with it? You can check if a number is even or odd. And how do we do that? So we know that if a number is even, its remainder when divided by 2 is 0. If it's odd, its remainder is 1. That's fair enough. So let's see what we do. Var odd number is equal to 5. Var even number is equal to 4. Shout at me, please, when I'm being inconsistent. Okay. And now, let's see. Let's see if we can check if a number is odd. So, what I'm doing here... Thank you. Good. So, what I'm doing here is I'm saying... Oh, this is too small. Okay. So, what I'm doing here is I'm saying if odd number modulus by 2 is equal to 1, then I'm going to say true. If even number modulus by 1, remember even number is 4, we define it above. If modulus by 2 is 1, then it will return true, otherwise it will return false. But this is false. So that's pretty much, you can even inspect that I'm not lying to you. Even number modulus by 2 is 0. And odd number modulus by 2 is 1. So this is one of the cases in which we can use it. So now we can do a really nice thing. If you remember, I told you you can make functions. And now what I would like to do is check if a number is even or not. So when I do this, so if we remember how we defined functions, it was the keyword function, it was the name, or however we want to call our function, and we gave it an input. An input, right? That number is my input to my function. So I say, if it's even, then I'll put this new friend of ours that we've learned about, I'll put this if inside a function. So I'm making a function that is trying to test if a number is even or not. So I'm going to try to say, okay, how do I check? So I check if number divided by 2 is 0, then I'm going to say console.log even. Otherwise, I'm going to say console.log odd. Is anyone following? Is anyone behind? I'm going to stop a bit right now. I'm going to talk a bit more. So, again, this if is checking if the number modulus 2 is giving a result of 0, then it'll say it's even, which we checked before. And if it's not, it'll say it's odd. So I've made this is even function. How do I call it? Does anyone want to call it on a number? Say, just shout at me something that you want to call is even on. Cool. That's right. Is even. 5. Yep. Pretty odd. Oh, I'm sorry about that. Must be confusing you. So, I named the function wrongly. This is one of the things I stressed that you shouldn't do at the beginning of last workshop, that you shouldn't name your variables and functions wrong. What I named my function is actually isEven, but it's returning even or odd. So what I should have named it is probably parity. Alternatively, I could have left it as isEven and just said return true, else return false. No, where'd you go? Come back. There you go. Return false. Okay, so this is going to do more of what I expect isEven to do, which is say false if 5 isn't even, and say true if 6 is even. With me so far? Sorry about the confusion. This is a very good example of why function naming, variable naming is crucial. Because it will completely baffle you if you don't know what it's talking about. Because obviously you'd expect isEven to say yes if it's even and no if it's not. Which it didn't before. Now it does. Good. So without any further ado, I'd love to go into the playground. So let's go in here. Yeah, there you go. My isEven example was actually here. I did not have to struggle with it at all. My bad. So, conditionals. Can everyone access the links that are available here? Is everyone okay with them? Cool. So, we're on this playground. And what I'm going to do now is actually let you guys play a bit. Is anyone that doesn't have a computer or whatever, but wants to play? Cool. So, let's do it. Let's look at what we have in here. So this is, like I said before, this is your example of how you can think of it. It's basically this guy right here. Basically saying this is how you mentally imagine it. And these are a few examples that you can use. So I'm using the example on the slide. I'm also putting forward another example that is using arrays. You can see I'm using the push function. Then there's a bunch of other examples that I'd like you to go at your own pace right now through them. I'm going to give you, say, 4 or 5 minutes to go through them, look at them, and raise your hand. I'm going to come at you, or some demonstrators are going to come at you if you're having any problems. I've put forward some questions. So for instance, one of the questions is, if we run this thing, it'll completely say, okay, give me a word. So, and it will output stuff. What do I mean by output? It will just make stuff appear here. In the right-hand side, which is still a console though, so don't be fooled. This is a console. You can still write console, console.log, hello, and this will write hello. So this is still a console. And you can clear it, and you can run the code again. You can write another word, different word. And yes, you can see that different stuff happens. Why this happens and it didn't happen before when we used the function playground. So this guy, if I press run, and if I delete this, if I press run now, yeah, it's not happy. Basically, this guy will only ever use one thing at a time, while this guy, because I'm not using any functions, it's just executing them all, one after the other. But I'm going to stop talking now, so feel free to play play around with them and yell if you need me. Oh, and ultimately, what I did not mention is that I've actually written up some exercises for you guys to go through when you've finished poking at the code for a while. So this will kind of be a gentle introduction to what the if-then else's can do. And then we'll try to move forward. Yes. So what I forgot to mention, I'm very sorry for the first exercise, is that you can access the first and last letter of something by using a function as well, like we used the dot length and dot push and so on and so forth. So you can do dot name, and you can do starts with H, and that will say true. And you can check for another thing, and that will say false. And that refers to the question that you were just saying. Basically, it does recognize if it's a lowercase or an uppercase, so it will say no to the starts with H. And you can also, intuitively enough, check if it ends with a letter. This is my mistake, this is my bad. Not saying beforehand. No. And names ends with R, yes, it's true. Ends with capital R, no, it's not true. So this is what you need for the first exercise. When you'll encounter these kind of problems, if you remember, I forgot to mention right now, but like I said, generally you won't have people around you to poke and ask, hey, how do I do this? So you'll just go into Google and say, get first element, or get string start, or whatever, JavaScript. You should usually put the language that you want your information inside your Google query. But generally you'll do that. So if I wanted to say, check if string starts with letter JavaScript, then this will say the first thing that I can hit is actually a documentation telling me that I can use a starts with. And I can use starts with words as well, not only letters. That's just pretty cool. So let's go ahead and try to figure out the first exercise by ourselves. So write an if statement to check if the text you've entered in a prompt, so the thing that we did last time, the thing that you've entered in a prompt, so var name equals prompt name. And then we'll say, do we want to check if the name starts with uppercase, which would be generally just checking for all the things like you said. And if it ends with name dot ends with dot. And then, so as someone pointed out before, if you wanted to check if it starts with a capital, so far, with as much as I've told you, you would have had to kind of check all of the letters one by one. All of the letters, A capital, B capital, C capital, D capital, and so on and so forth, so all of the letters. You could have done that with a very fast but painful if name dot starts with if name dot starts with A or B or C and so on and so forth. You get the drill.
Sorry. The end statement from JavaScript, is it just end?
the AND statement is a bit dodgy because it doesn't do what you'd expect it to do. So if you want the logical, AND, you have to use the double AND. When you get to stuff like the normal AND, it's a bit trickier and you're already in the intricacies of programming languages. Good. Okay. We've gotten through this guy. The second one is actually intended to be very tedious. So if anyone's ended up with a lot of stuff intertwined, then they figured out how to do exercise 2. So what do I mean by that? Well, I'm going to get var word prompt word. And then I'm going to say if word is equal to cat console.log meow. Else, now this is a really cool thing that I like, because you can nest ifs. And what do I mean by nesting ifs? You can put an if inside another if. And then an if inside another if. And so on and so forth. So this is dog console.log with else if. You can do it with an or as well. You don't have to do it like this. This is only one other option, one other way in which you can do it. If word is equal to lion console.log roar and so on and so forth. And you will have to have an else blah blah blah. Good. So this thing will get your sounds and we'll get your exercise. Now, exercise 3 is asking you to write a function to make all of these possible. I.e., whenever you want to redo, to kind of encapsulate a bunch of code that you've written, you will want to put it inside a function. And what I mean by that is, like I did with a is even, if you remember, because I wanted to reuse my code that I wrote here and make it useful, make it so that I can call it again and again without having to write out this thing. So I only wrote this out once, and then whenever I call it, that's it. So that's why I said by building it in a function. This was supposed to be intentionally tedious because point number 4 is saying that you can't see it. Point number 4, if you have it in front of you, it's saying make the code at 2 into a switch statement. And I didn't define what that is. Well, if you have a look at this guy is the visual representation of what a glorified if really is. Because what we can do, if you look at the examples with the animals, you can say, I have different cases. I know what my number of different cases are. Then I can check for each of them individually what they are and what they're doing. And I can do different actions for different conditions. And what is the really crucial thing about the switch? I'm not going to stress on it. It's not that important. You can have a look at it in your own time. It is basically more impressive if you will. But what it does, very importantly, it does not accept two conditions at the same time. So it says, if condition 1 is true, then that's it. I'm going on this, and after I finish with this, I end. If condition 1 is not true, I'm going back here, and I'm saying I'm going on this branch. So the conditions will have to be mutually exclusive. That's the gist of it. Okay. So yeah, let's get to looping. So what we've done so far is we've seen a lot of individual lines. We've seen a lot of do this, but we don't know how to repeat something. We don't know how to keep doing something over and over again until it is no longer true. Because our if said, if this condition is true, then do this bit of code. But what if I want to do some bit of code until a condition is true? And I'm going to stress on that until a lot. So that means while condition, do this code here. And what I mean by that is while condition evaluates to true, I'm going to keep doing this. Otherwise, I'm going to break out of the loop. And when I say break out of the loop, I say I'm going to execute whatever is after this while. In this case, if you look at the syntax example and not the wordy example, in this case is just console.log and prod. And again, you need to loop if you want to say, so for instance, I want to go through the numbers from 1 to 5. And how do I do that? Well, we'll just go right ahead and look at our next REPL, because I think it's a much better visual to have it in front of you and then to have me babbling on about it, because so far the console's been great for little things, little instructions, little one line, maybe I squished an if statement in there. But it's much better to have a visual in front of you, which is why I preferred to use the REPLs. Please do say in the feedback form if you thought that the REPLs were confusing or whatever. We really appreciate your feedback. Cool. So let's try to see how I'd get the numbers from 1 to 5. So if you want to, I can go through it in the console as well. Would people be more comfortable with that? Or is this okay? Okay, so I'll go through one example in the console. I'll go in here, and I'll go to Google, pop up the console, and I'll say var I equals 0. Actually, I'll say 1. So I'm starting at 1. So how would I do this? How would I do this if I didn't have my loop, right? So I want the numbers from 1 to 5, I said. So I'm going to do console.log I. And I'm going to do I equals I plus 1. I is now 2. Console.log I. Console.log I. I is I plus 1. Console.log I, and so on and so forth. I don't want to do that. I don't want to keep writing the same code over and over again. It would get tedious. It would get really tedious. I could do that, or I could do, without the I could do just console.log 1, console.log 2, console.log 3. You can immediately see that there must be a better way to do it. And it is. Because that's where we have our I loop. So if we go before, var I equals 1. And now I'm going to do my beautiful while loop. So while I is less than or equal to 5, which means if I go up until 5, and I is no greater than 5, then, oh, no. Okay, let's go back. So while I is less than or equal to 5, then I want to do console.log I, but I also need one very important thing. And that very important thing is what I've been stressing on right here. which is breaking out of the loop. Because if I did this, if I left this as it is, where are you? If I left this guy as it is, doing this would print out ones indefinitely. Because my I would always be less than or equal to 5, right? I'm not doing anything to change my I. I'm not doing anything to try to make that condition that while I less than or equal to 5, I'm not doing anything to make that false. So what I want to do is do I plus plus, which is the same as I equal I plus 1, is just a shorthand. And that will not work. Okay. Okay. Console must be playing with me. But if you go here and you press the run, then you can see that it's the same code. And it runs and it runs the values. I'm actually going to be very interested why that didn't work. But yes. So whenever you do this, alternatively, we can now try to do what I said before. Oh, one important thing. All my examples are lengthy. There's a lot of them, right? So we can see that here we've got a bunch of stuff that's going on. You can comment out code. And like you see these guys right here that are comments, you can comment out code that you do not want to be ran, i.e. you do not want it to work, like so. So you're going to kind of add a beginning comment and an end comment to it. And then, next time you run the code, the first thing that I just commented out, this while loop, will no longer be ran because it's in a comment. That's kind of what you can do whenever you're feeling, okay, I want to isolate this bit and this bit and this bit, and I want to see what everything does individually. So what will happen when I comment out this bit of code, i.e. when I comment out actually changing the I. Yeah. Hey! This is being very useful. You will not get these useful error messages in other languages, I can assure you of that. So, infinite loop. It's saying, you've potentially entered an infinite loop. I've kept printing 1 until I've gotten sick. Please get me out of here. That's what that's saying. Because you've not made any modifications to I. You've not changed in any way the truthfulness of the condition I less than or equal to 5. So let's put that back in there because it won't be happy. And let's try to run through the other guys. So my while is running again perfectly fine, printing the values from 1 to 5. And now I want to introduce you to another friend of mine. And this is the visual that I told you about before. If you want to have a better visual aspect of it, I won't stress on it. Again, everyone learns in their own way. And this is again another visual. It's a GIF. It's a pretty good one in my opinion. It lets you see how exactly this while loop modifies the values that is inside it and how it kind of deals with every single instruction per line. It goes in, it sees A, it modifies A right in here, goes back, checks, yeah, okay, prints it, adds 2 to it, modifies it. It checked, the condition is still okay, goes, it prints it, adds 2 to it, now it becomes 11. Now the condition won't be true, so now it gets out. That's pretty much what it does. You can go at it again in your own pace. That's why I thought that giving you the slide decks would give you a better kind of go back and forward on your own feeling. Cool. And now, as you can see right in here, we have another construct because there are 2 main looping constructs in most languages. There are the while one and the for one. And it's each to his own, really, of which one you're going to use. It doesn't depend that much. It's sometimes easier to use a for. It's sometimes easier to use a while. It depends on case. It depends how you like your code structured. So the for loop has three main steps. It has the give me the variables that you're going to use, which is in the first thing. So how the for loop looks is it has three main bits. It has this bit here, semicolon, this middle bit, semicolon, the end bit. First bit, variable initialization. I did not say that wrong. All right. Variable initializing. Then you have your condition checking, which is like here. And then you have your modification, in which this is happening right here. You have your modification at the end statement, at the third statement. That's pretty much it. So the for loop, how it differs from the while, it has three things separated by two semicolons. That's pretty much it. And the instruction inside is going to be the same, because you're doing the same thing. And as showcased right here, it's exactly the same behavior. The text up here is just me writing some console.logs, so you don't have to worry about that. But the behavior is exactly the same, as you can see.
You said you can control the number of steps in the for loop.
Yep.
I don't see how you do that.
So you're controlling the number of steps in the sense that it's much more intuitive how to do it with the for than with the while, for instance. The while sometimes you will use when you do not know necessarily when you're going to stop. But with the for, you kind of have this hunch that you know beforehand how many steps you're going to use, in a nutshell. But you can see when you're going to use them, which one kind of you prefer, which one is more intuitive for you.
Hi, sorry. Do you want me to increment by a different increment, say by 2, code to code digits?
Good?
Sorry.
No. That's very good. So you want to increment by 2, right? It's as easy as changing the condition as so. That is a very good question.
So why the plus plus like a special scenario?
Oh, the plus plus is, I hope it's here. I really hope it's here. Yes, it is. So it's this. It's literally the same thing as saying x equals x plus 1. If you do x plus plus, it's just a shorthand, like you say TTYL instead of talk to you later. That sort of stuff.
Thank you.
No problems.
I noticed in your GIF you had plus equals. That's another way to think about it.
Yeah, so plus equals would be, in this code, for instance, plus equals 2. That will mean the same thing as I equals I plus 1. So if I wanted to say basically three things that are exactly the same, are I equals I plus 1. Does this no longer, console doesn't like me anymore. Okay. I'll try again. My computer doesn't like me anymore. Yeah, okay. So var I equals 1, I equals I plus 1, I plus plus, and I plus equals 1 are exactly the same thing. So they mean exactly the same thing. That's pretty much it. It's pretty good. Thank you for the question. It was a really good question.
Around the brackets, do you always write the number of steps that you want to have inside the brackets?
Inside the brackets, so you can write whatever, and you can use it as well. So sometimes you may want to, because the point of this is that whenever you're here, you've kind of finished one iteration of this guy, which means you've logged it, you go again, you check the instruction, you say, I'm going to do whatever happens in there. And that might mean that you don't necessarily have to change the step. You can have a variable called So I can have another variable, var k equals 1, and then I can have k equals k times 5. And if I do this, and then I try to log k is, and then I say k, and then this is an unexpected error. Yeah, so if I do this, then k is not my step. K is definitely not my step, but it is something that I changed in there, and I used it somewhere else. So in that case, you can use whatever. You can use some new array and change its values in there if you really feel like it. If you don't feel like changing it inside the loop, because the same thing that I did here, I could have done by not doing this, but saying k equals k times 5. And it would have been basically the same thing. See? So yeah, you can do whatever you want inside it. Good. Now, let's try to, no, we're not doing that. Let's try to move a bit to the next part. Is everyone with me so far? I mean, still with me. Who's bearing here? Thank you for bearing with me. So the next bit of the REPL, which we want to look at, is this particular thing, which is why, for me at least, I feel that looping is so very useful, because it allows you to go through all of the values in an array, or to go through every value, every other value, and so on and so forth. So what this guy does is, I have an array, it's called R, it has the values there, is, no, and try in it, and it goes with a while loop through the entirety of the array, and it prints out each and every one of these values. And if I didn't have this, I would have had to write console.log R0, console.log R1, and so on and so forth. But it became so easy for me to do that with only a while loop right there. I think I broke this. Yes, I broke this. No, I did. Hey, beautiful. Cool. So that's it. Instead of writing a lot of tedious code, because imagine you have like 100 elements in your array, and you want to see all of them, and you want to do all, like, you want to see all of them with just one line of code. So yeah, just doing that will print out all of the things that are in your array. And you won't have to worry about doing this over and over again for each and every element of your array. Good. With me so far? People? Yes? Maybe? Good. Okay. And now, this is one of the more interesting examples. I showed you can nest ifs. Well, you can also nest for loops. And when is that useful? Loads of time, to be honest. When you want to do something repeatedly. So for instance, what I wanted to do here is actually go through my array, go through this array right here, look at every value. I'm just going to delete these guys right now. I want to look at every value, and I want for every value to print out in turn each and every one of the characters. And if you want to do that, say you want to be very poetic, like I'm here, like this looks like poetry for that matter. But if you want to do this, you can easily by nesting two for loops. Because the first one says, I'm going with an I iterator through your array, and then I'm going with a j iterator through every element in your basically through every value that you've given me, because array I dot length. Yeah. So you're going to go through the where is it? There, and print every single thing. Char at j is literally so if I want to show you, I'm realizing now that it's a bit convoluted maybe. So if I want to do a simple console example, I'm going to say var name equals Lucia, and then I'm going to say name.char at 0. Again, like you can see, it's L. But I can also do var names equals Lucia. And now my names contains Lucia. Names 0 is my name. And names 0 dot char at 0 is the same thing, because I've put it in an array and I've gotten it out. Is that understandable? Cool. Yeah. So that's what I did right here. Array I is there, and for every letter of array I, which is char at j, I've printed it out. And that's a nested for it. Okay, so I would really like you to go through the first 2 exercises now, quickly, and yell at me if there is any problem. And we'll go through the last 2 together. So thanks a lot for the patience, guys. I've seen that a lot of you have gotten really the hang of the exercises, which is incredible to see. I've saw that most of you have gotten through the first 2 ones, so I don't think I can go fast through them. So it's going to be basically for var I equals 1, I less than or equal to 10, I plus plus, console.log I. So I've seen that a lot of you have done this, which is really good. This guy's going to evaluate to 1, 2, 3. Let me just put a break in here. So this guy evaluated to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, which is pretty good. But I saw that that's what most of you guys got. The other guy is trying to get the first 100 numbers that are odd, which means that what we want to do is actually go until 100 and say I equals I plus 1. So essentially, what this guy's doing is it's going through all of the numbers and it keeps on iterating. But we can do this better. We can make this more readable. And what do I mean by more readable? I mean, I'm going to use my I as a step. I'm going to use my k as a step, but I'm going to use my I as the variable that is going on. So console.log I. And then this. Sorry? Use a? Zoom in. Sorry about that. So if we see this, then that means I've decided I is going to be now, I could name this better. I could name this odd num. And then odd num is going to be my I. And this is a very nice and readable way to loop through. But I've seen that most of you guys got the gist of it and went about it another way. This is one of the exercises which I was actually meaning to showcase, in the sense that different people have so many different approaches of going about it that there's no one right approach. There is literally free of hand as long as you get to the result. You want it to look good in a sense, but this is a bit being superfluous. Some of you actually did it better. Good. Now let's get to the one that I would really like to talk about, which is 3. So it's, let's make a small guessing game. And what is this guessing game? It's basically saying, I want you to give me a number, and I have my number that I know I'm thinking of, so var chosen num equals to 6. I'm thinking about 6. So what I want you to do is I want you to keep guessing until you've reached the number I have. So that means whenever your guess is wrong. So let's see right now, step by step, because someone was actually struggling with this beforehand, and we should see what is going on right in here. So we say 8, and now it's printing out 8. Let's put it 7, and it's printing out a 7. Okay, so my guess is interpreted apparently right now as a number. Is your prompt working now, by the way? Good. So it sees that I have my guess. So while my guess is different to the chosen number, I'm going to keep saying
You have an extra O chosen.
thank you. So while I'm going to keep saying guess is going to take a different value, and it's going to be new value that I'm giving it. So let's see if this guy's works. So I'm going to say 7, wrong guess. Say 8, wrong guess. 5, wrong guess. 6, hey, it was happy. It was happy. And why? How do I tell it was happy? If you remember me, I think the computer slept. But what this is doing right now is that it broke out of the loop. And you guys know that already. So if it broke out of the loop, that means, yay, you got it. Then it means it'll execute what I'm doing after the loop. So to prove that, 6, and yay, you got it. It's right in here. That's pretty much it. Now, let's get to the 4th one. Is everyone happy with the 3rd one? Did everyone understand what was happening? So what we're doing is we're going through the loop, and we're changing the condition because I'm doing guess equals prompt. Therefore, I'm changing guess. If I only did this, so if I erased guess from here, and I'd go about doing this again, then it would be sad with me because it doesn't like me. Sorry?
It's not that line.
Here?
It's on line 99. I don't know.
I think I added a thing I wasn't supposed to. Okay. You'll just have to believe me that if this is here, this will go on forever. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure why this doesn't want to work. The line below? Not really. No. There's nothing really below. Yeah, let's just use this guy here. So if I did this, and I kept choosing, even if I got the correct answer, which is 6, it would keep on prompting me because I'm actually not changing guess at all. I'm just literally saying, well, guess is different, but guess was the first thing that I gave it. which was not 6, and it never changed again. That's pretty much it. Good. This will no longer want to exit. Doing a hard refresh. This does not like me. Okay. Let's assume that did not break. And let's go back into it. Good. So if we got in here, then we understood what's going on with 3 and 2 and 1. And now let's modify the answer to 3 to say yes, but actually give us a bit more useful information than no, you haven't got it, please try again. So what that will be doing is var my number, or chosen one. Let's stay with that. So chosen num equals 6 as before, var guess equals prompt new guess. I'm very sorry about the bar right here. I'm not entirely sure what to do with it, because I've hit auto hide, but it doesn't want to hide. And then let's write our while again. But this time, let's make it with an if inside it. And what do I mean by making it with an if inside it? Well, I say whenever the guess that I've just gotten is lower than my chosen number, then I'm going to prompt my user to give me a higher number. Because I'm telling it, no, you not got it, but you're lower than I expecting you to be. Otherwise, I'm going to say, okay, it's not higher than my chosen number. It's not lower than my chosen number. It's actually higher. So I want it to go lower in order to guess my number. So guess is now equal to their new guess, which is a bit more educated than the last one. Yeah, there it is. Can everyone see that? That's good. So now, this guy should run, and my new guess is 7, and it's saying, go lower. New guess is 3, go higher. New guess is 5, still go higher. New guess is 6, and I got it. And that's the gist of it. It's a pretty nice way, and also very intuitive, especially in games and stuff like that, when you want to use just completely... we want to help the user get through the levels, if you will, if you're making a game, but you don't want to give it all away. So that's when you're kind of going to use this until they're wrong. Just prompt them with the correct answer. And this is one of the very easy cases where you can do that. So yeah, I like that. This is nice. Good. And I think that's it for today. Should I stop here? Do people want to go on? We have another 15 minutes, 20. It's enough, right? Good. So we'll stop here. I'll try to touch on objects at the next workshop. And thank you all for coming. Thank you, and I hope this has been useful.